community of Splatsin, which is my home, the Secwepemc Nation. And we're at our community center here, and we're in the process of forming alliances around Indigenous jurisdiction for our children, and really embarking on a journey where we're bringing all the nations that are working on this, developing their own law of how we actually can coordinate and work and help each other out.
There's still 40,000 First Nations children in provincial care. And we wanted Canada's law to recognize First Nations law, First Nations paramountcy, and that First Nations have jurisdiction over their children, on reserve and off reserve.
Along with my sisters, we spent our entire lives in the foster care system, our entire childhood in the foster care system. In telling you my experience, I wanted to highlight a number of things. It brings to surface the generational trauma that our people endured with the 60 scoop, with the residential schools, and how this impacted our parenting generation after generation. Most importantly, though, it raises the resilience of Secwepemc people. It raises our ability to look after our own, and coming to that realization in the end that the people responsible for saving us comes from within. It's going to be me. It's going to be my sisters. It's going to be our leadership. It's going to be our community. And today, we're starting to have that conversation. We're starting to revitalize those relationships. We're stronger as one.
The inherent jurisdiction is held by our proper title holders. And when I say that, when I mean that in reference to children and family, I'm talking about the grandmothers, the mothers who have brought the children into the world. By natural law, they hold those jurisdictions, they hold those laws, they hold those practices. And that's got to be the foundation of our jurisdiction as Indigenous people, as Secwepemc people, as we move forward.
We are here to work together, to learn from each other, to celebrate our successes, and to really move forward together.
So Bill C-92 offers a good first step in making space for Indigenous law and legal processes. That is the first step, to make space, to hold up our laws, to recognize them alongside civil law and common law in the Canadian legal system.
Moving forward to achieve jurisdiction means that we need to look back. We need to look back what our ancestors did. We need to reflect on the teachings, the importance of understanding our place in our world, from our origin stories, from all of our teachings, all of our laws. We had laws. Now it's time to restore those laws and to make sure that we keep our children safe and we keep our families together.
Having the child in the center is traditionally our model for taking care of children, and really traditionally how we took care of our children. So,
well, really the circle that is formed around that child is the inner circle, is the grandmothers, because in our traditions and in our laws, it's the grandmothers that actually have that knowledge for the child and transmit knowledge about the child. So they're the first group around, and then the mothers are around, and aunties are around the grandmothers, and then you have at the outer circle the men that actually stand outward, like was shown, to protect the inner circle, and that's our job as men. So it outlines the roles and responsibilities that have been transmitted to us through our oral history for thousands of years, and it's not a concept that's just foreign to us. It's also all the tribes in British Columbia have similar types of processes that where the child is at the center.
We know that our Wet'suwet'en social care institutions have worked for us. They worked for us for thousands of years. They've been developed over thousands of years. They work for us still, and they are what we have to get back to.
Our chiefs tell us everyone needs a cultural plan, not just a kid who's now in the permanent care of the director. That's actually a call to action around prevention too. If we all have cultural plans, there's so much resiliency that's built around a child or a vulnerable family that they become so much less likely to fall into systems like child protection and justice and all those things. So much of what we do is out on the land, out on the territories. We do camps year-round. We bring families out onto the territories. We know that magic happens when folks are just connected back to the territories. Ancestors speak to us. The land speaks to us. The stories come back. The songs are remembered. So that's what our workers do, is get people back out onto the land.
And there is only one childhood that these people will experience, these children will experience. And no one should be denied that childhood. No one should be denied hope. No one should be denied being all that they can be. And that's really what it's all about, because once you become all you can be, you're building a better individual, healthy families, healthy communities, healthy nations, which is really building a better Canada.
This is the beginning. It's not the answer. No single piece of legislation, in my experience over time, is the cure. But what it does is it can create the conditions to have restorative. And I say restorative justice, meaning restoring and respecting First Nations authority, restoring and respecting First Nations children and youth inside their nations.
All of these different elements are interconnected. Whether it be the child welfare, the laws, but the land and the culture and the practices and healing.
We need more gatherings like this, traditional gathering. We don't raise our kids by paper. We raise our kids from here. I don't want us to wait for the legislation to be changed. Let's do these things now.
And through this process is really about standing up our own laws. That's all about connection. And it'll look different 10 years from now, so all the Indigenous children in British Columbia should have roots and connection and be looked after by their own communities wherever possible, and if not, then relatives of those communities. And that's what it's really about, is bringing our children and our language under our wing again and protecting and looking after them. And I think that's what's really important.
Canada would be breaking international law if we didn't move together to really put some resources and some jurisdictional teeth into First Nations self-governing bodies.
And so we need to rise up and move beyond the Indian Act. We constitute ourselves as nations. Create your own laws. Because in Canada, if it's to really be a country that it should be, there has to be space and room for recognition of First Nations law, Creators Law, Natural Law, in addition to common law and civil law.
We've got all these tribes in British Columbia that have been actively pursuing this and really putting our minds together, so how can we continue this work? So I really do hope and understand that this should become an annual event, so all of us that are working on this should gather once a year with the different nations hosting it in their territory like we're hosting here, so we can stand up and continue to share with each other and help each other out.
And I firmly believe that the answer to getting back to what we used to do so powerfully is to go back to our traditions, our culture, our language, and that's what we're planning on doing.